Hello, everyone. Today is Thursday, May 15th, week six, day three. Yes, of hotel evening and weekend platoon. Welcome, welcome. Today we're going to go over reading code. It's a pretty simple lesson, but it actually takes a lot of time to be half decent at it. And actually, an understated thing is being fast at it. Right now, you're reading files that are 20 lines. Wait till you have to read files that are 600 lines, and there's 2,000 of them. Right. So today's lesson, very, very important. But before we jump into today's lesson, not anything specific, but any big overarching questions on what you covered yesterday, or not yesterday, Tuesday. It was data structures, right? Stacks, queues, and linked list, right? Yep. Any big questions? Not necessarily anything specific about any of the challenges, but any questions about the importance of data structures? No big questions? So the one thing well, I wouldn't say this program, pretty much all coding boot camps don't do a particularly good job at is being very good at algos. Well, why is that? It's just a matter of time. To make you really exceptional at algos, it would take you a year of grinding every day to be truly good at it to the point where you could pass a high level coding interview. Make sense? And that's not an exaggeration. Um, 1 year of tremendous focus might make you pretty good. Um, if you ever follow Blind, if anyone knows what that is, but it's like anonymous, like I don't even know what you would call it. It's an app, but everything's anonymous. And people always rank themselves in terms of how many leak code problems they would do. Or if you follow the like computer science subreddit, they'd be like, 700 leak code solved or something like that. It's supposed to give some kind of like insight into their skill level. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But sometimes people will go on there and it'll be like 4,000 leak code solved. And you know that guy is not messing around. And the reason why those are important is you don't actually use them that often. Well, you use things like queues and um, and stacks quite frequently, but you don't use any of the really advanced algorithms that frequently because they're not really that practical to use and you don't need them. But you will need them to get past technical screens and get to the person that's going to offer you a job. That you are going to need, especially if you hope to crack a lot of these high level tech companies. And when we say high level tech companies are like the Mangs or the Fangs, the reason why they have a special designator is only one reason. They pay more than a lot of the other companies. That's it. And I guess sometimes quote unquote prestige comes with that. I guess. Who cares about that? I care about the money though. That's always nice. So get good at that. Unfortunately, we're not going to have a lot of time on the course just because, as you've already seen, there's just so much to cover. So algos get and even when you get to space and time optimization, um, space and time complexity, you'll see that we don't spend really that much time on it either. But it's something you're going to need to know. Make sense? At least early in your career. After you have a couple of jobs underneath your belt, maybe that becomes less important. At least that's what I've heard. I wouldn't know firsthand because I'm not there yet, career-wise. Alrighty, so don't dismiss it. Cracking the coding interview, the book. Let me pull it up. I'll pull it up right now before we move on. Let me just get started here. Share. Give me 1 second. Uh, this is a really good book. I finished it. If you get a chance to borrow it from Locker Library or get it on eBay secondhand, I would definitely read all this cover to cover and do all the coding challenges. All the coding challenges are in Java, but if you have a pretty strong understanding of Python, it should be more or less easy to read. If you can read one language pretty well, you would probably read all of them. Not all of them, but most of them. There's some that are really like out there, like Perl or um, assembly that you're not going to be able to read very well at all. But outside of that, the modern languages you should be able to read. So this is a really good book. So highly recommend it whenever it is you find time. And this one's a really good one. Kind of helps you understand programming or this idea of binary and how you could make really complex systems out of just zeros and ones. Who wrote this? Charles Petzel. Sorry, I've got a mess going here. Code Charles Petzel, I believe. There we go. This, get a chance to read this. Really excellent book. It's called The Hidden Language of Computer Hardware and Software. And it just really starts from the beginning, right? And tell you stories on how you can build a really complex language just on yes and no, or circuit open, circuit closed, 0 and 1. And that's ultimately what computers do. Create this like system of logic with just zeros and ones. More or less how programming, more or less how computers work and how data is stored, because all data is stored in binary. So if you get a chance to read those two, those are for people new to programming, myself included. I would highly recommend both of those. Code is not an overly technical book at all. It reads almost like a novel, whereas Cracking the Coding Interview is a lot more technical. Two good intro books. Any questions about that? Alrighty. Today's lesson is a really important one, how to read code. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So this first line is actually really important. When you get your first job as a software engineer, and pretty much every job after that, you spend most of your time reading other people's code and less time writing code. People think as a programmer you write a lot of code. You actually don't write that much code, but you read a ton of it. You read a ton of it. You write a lot of documents, right? You do a lot of research. You sometimes attend a lot of meetings, and then whatever time's left, you write a little bit of code, right? Ultimately, the best coding solution is a non-code solution. What does that mean? Does anybody know what that means? I think I had a manager once tell me that. The best coding solution is a non-code solution. What does that mean? Or what do you think it means?
Uh, Maybe it means the best way to solve it is to not add more code to what's
Yeah,
already there.
exactly. Because when you add code, you add what?
Complexity and
Yeah,
errors.
and errors and maintenance costs. That's expensive, right? So you're going to come to realize I'm about to say something that may not mean a whole lot right now, but it will eventually mean something really important to you, right? When you get to your job and you're trying to solve a problem, right? As a programmer, you always like, you ever hear that saying is like when you only have a hammer, you see everything as a nail. As a young developer, that happens a lot. You're like, oh, let me code this out. No, you don't. You don't want to, you want to actually try to avoid coding anything if possible, right? Let's say you have two services that need to talk to each other when in your company, right? Is there is there some kind of built-in integration that your company already has that can do the work with a couple button clicks so I don't have to write any new code and then proceed to have to maintain it? Be totally dope if I can make that integration happen and work without having to write anything. That would be dope because then I'm not in charge of maintaining it and I got what I needed, right? So it's kind of a weird concept right now. You're trying to learn how to program, but I'm telling you right now that actually writing the code is the least of it, right? Probably a really important part of it, right? But not the most important part, right? All right, so today we're going to take a tour of a fairly simple repo, the array equals that you've already used, that npm package that you use for linear search and Armstrong numbers. So we're going to take a look around. So go ahead and follow along. We're just going to open it, and this just takes you to a GitHub repo, and you could actually go to the actually, it's probably here, actually. Um, yeah, both of these are actually the same, right? This is just being stored, right, on a platform. But as you can tell, it's being stored on NPM, and you just import this uh, into your application, right? And then you use it, right? So we're going to mess with this a little bit. This is literally the exact same thing. So if you were actually to look, let's look here. This is just the GitHub repo. If you go out index.js, right, you're going to see this code. But if you go in here and you check out the code, go to index.js, look at that, same code, right? Right, just one comes as an npm package and one is just a GitHub repo, right? But a package or a module is just a library, which is just synonymous. There's some slight subtle differences, but for all intended purposes for today, and really for the beginning of your career, they're the same thing. It's just code that someone else what? Just
Someone else
code,
wrote.
yeah, that someone else wrote that you can use, you can import into your project. Okay, so we'll look at the GitHub repo. You're going to look around. There's a lot going on, but don't worry about most of it. You'll notice that there's a bunch of different files not directly related to real code. This is probably one of the most important lessons early on right here. When you look at a code base or you look at an application, trying to parse out what files you need to mess with or pay attention to and what files you don't have to is really important, right? What's the entry point to your program, right? What part of the application are you going to be working on, right? What folders do you not even need to open because they don't impact your code changes at all? All of that comes with time, but that's kind of one of the important things about being able to read the code, right? What files matter and which don't to what you're trying to accomplish. Because even smaller applications, there are a couple thousand files. You're not going to be able to read all of that, right? At least not in a timely manner. So really zeroing in on what you're trying to do, just a handful of files you need to edit to accomplish what you need to accomplish is really important. Okay, so here we go. There's a lot of files. They're not directly related to real code. Try to find the real code. I pretty much just gave it to you. It's the index.js file. If you have questions about the files, try doing a search or ask ChatGPT, but you don't have to. I already told you. Find the main entry point. I already told you there was index.js. This is where everything is happening. The main entry point file happens to be called index.js. I already told you that. So obviously there's going to be code bases with much more complex than a single function or just a handful of files. But we're taking it easy on you for right now, get you kind of comfortable with reading code. So get a high level understanding of the code. Take a few minutes, and we're going to actually do this together. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through this because I'm going to ask you to do something slightly more complicated than what we have here. This just tells you, hey, take a couple minutes to get situated, but we're just going to go over it together. And then it's going to go over that index.js file, and we're going to walk through it line by line, right? And I'm going to show you how I kind of read this. So this is just a repo, or I could read it in here. It doesn't matter. This is the exact same code, right? So I'm going to go ahead and read this for you. And this is ultimately, or even better than this, you need to get to a point where you can read it just like this, right? I want you to just take a minute and try to read what this says. It's pretty short, right? But I want you to see if you can understand every single line. Okay, let's see if what I have to say matches with what you had. And it's probably not going to match, at least not fully, and that's okay. But ultimately, this is the goal. You see this? Ready? All right. So line one is just a conditional. This is exporting a function named array equals. It's two parameters, is array one and array two. Cool. The very first is a conditional check, right? And it's checking if array one triple equals array two. Triple equals means that the value and the data type are the same, and it automatically returns true. By looking at, I know that this is a shallow equals. It's specifically just checking, hey, does it point to the same list in memory? That's what it's doing. Because if it does, then it's the same list and you can return true. That's what this is doing, right? And then on line 6, it's actually destructuring. It's actually just pulling this property out of array, knowing full well that this is a mutable list and it has this property. Was this necessary? No. Could you have done this? Yes. Why did they do this? No idea. Does it provide any kind of value? No. Does it arguably make it more confusing? Maybe yes. But someone wrote it, I didn't, so cool. Right? So here, then it goes, hey, we know if length, which is really just array 1, is not equal to the length of array 2, these arrays can't possibly be equal. They have different number of elements. They'll never be equal. Return false. Yes? Then here it goes into a loop. What's wrong with this right here? This is not let, but what? That's actually a mistake here. It should be what? It shouldn't be let index equals 0. It should be what? It should be const.
Should it be?
Yeah. Why? This is never going to change. Why is it let? Right? So there you go. And then it goes, if index is less than length, right? Increment by 1. And then what this is doing is just looping, right? It's actually only looping. Is using the length to loop. And I guess that's why they destructured it, but that's fine. You could have literally just looped over one of them because if it got to line 12, we know that both arrays are the same length. If not, I would have exited here, right? So you could have easily just looped over any array, pick your favorite, 1 or 2, irrelevant. And now it's checking if every element is exactly the same, right? And notice here, it's checking every index of array 1 and array 2. This is always going to work because if this code runs, it means they're exactly the same length. So you're never going to get an index out of range error because if not, it would have exited here. Right? So there you go. It checks if any time any number differs in sequence, that means in order, it returns false, can't be equal. However, if the loop finishes, we know that both arrays are exactly the same. Return true. That's how you should read that. Questions about that? I know that seems maybe overly simple. Maybe it seems overly, I'm not sure. But that's how you should be able to read the code. And just because, remember, some guy wrote this or some girl, somebody wrote this. Doesn't mean they're the best programmer in the world. It just means that, hey, they took the time, they wrote it, and they pushed it out, and it became popular. Cool. But is this by no means exceptionally written code? Right? Questions about this? What you had in your head, roughly the same? Somewhat close, 50%? You're somewhere around 50 or more, you're doing fine. Okay. Let's go back. So that's pretty much what this was. Boom. It says that chat GPT, you don't have to ask. You can ask me if you have a question. We're good. All right, so getting into the details. We're now going to build off your high level understanding. If there are any details that jump at you and you don't understand, try to dig in. For example, and we already talked about this right here, the line const length array 1 probably looked unfamiliar. Try to think about the problem and formulate a question, but I already told you they're just destructuring. They're pulling a property from that specific data structure. Criticisms and questions. Once you have a pretty good handle on the content, you should start asking deeper questions about the code. For example, why do you think the author of this code created a length variable on the first line? Can anyone tell me why they did that? Right? If you look at it, they pull this out. What was the reason? What do you think they did that?
Because if it was nested in anything, then it wouldn't be able to use later on.
No, array list methods have a length property. All of them do. Array one, array two. Why did they do this? I could have pulled it. I could have pulled it right here. I could have done array one length. I could have just did array one length here too. Why did they do it? That was just a preference. That's all. You could argue it's unnecessary, right? And that's what it's getting you to kind of think about how the code is written, right? Right now, there's a lot to learn. You don't know a lot. I don't know a lot, just because programming is just so big and intractable at times. But eventually, you'll get to a point where, hey, you can read this. This makes sense. And you start questioning why people made certain design decisions. And that's ultimately what you need to kind of work towards. And then this just kind of asks you some of the same questions I already asked you, right? Could have been placed somewhere else or even not included at all. Of course, it could have. Why just array one and not array two? I think ultimately, I mean, I can try to guess why they did it. I mean, they wanted to pull it out and just use something more neutral here in the loop. But again, it doesn't matter, right? This is coming after the check for length. So whether you use array length one or array length two here is irrelevant. This to me adds unnecessary complication. Definitely not needed. This is actually a really good example because the code's not that great. It's easy to point out what could have been done maybe slightly different. Make sense? Alrighty. Variable names, obviously they could have picked better names. Um, Ultimately, right now it doesn't make that much of a difference, but actually I see this a lot. And I'm going to go ahead and uh, just write this for a second. This happens a lot. Oh, sorry, give me a second. My thing is cutting out. Boom. Here we go. This is actually really important. Another thing to consider is variable names. Do the names make sense? Do they clearly communicate their purpose? Would you have named them differently? So I almost said it's not important. It is actually really important, and it's good to get into the habit of writing good variable names because when you get to the job, that will be expected of you. And when people learn how to program, this is just a Python example because this happens all the time. When I interview people, people will do this. They'll do like for I in, some array or something, right? And then they'll try to do something with I, right? And I'll ask, what is I? And they're like, oh, well, that's the index. What's wrong with that statement? And they start to print I. And I ask them, what is I in this loop? This is literally the easiest code you could possibly read. And I ask, what is I? And they're like, well, it's the index. And I say, no. What is it? Someone here better know.
It's just the variable it's just representing the value of in an array, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's the value at that iteration, right? Because they'll have something like word list, and they'll have something like this. And I ask, what is I? And they're like, well, it's an index. No, it isn't. It's a word at that specific iteration. Why didn't you call it word? And they don't know. I know why you wrote this because that's all you see online, right? But you don't really know what I is, right? I is not an index here. This is just the only Python that you know, right? Which is the first red flag, or indicated that you have a long way to go, right? So if it's a word in a word list, call it that, right? Because then they'll get into something like this. What is I here?
I'm
What
gonna
is
get,
I?
and I guess and say I is the index.
I is the index at that specific iteration. These two things are not the same. They're different kinds of loops. Tells me you don't know your loops. And I think I already told this group already, right? If you mess up your argument name or you mess up your parameter name, right, or you mess up your reserved words in a technical interview, it will not go well. They're going to assume you don't know how to code. Not fair, but that's just the way it is. Make sense? Okay. So when you're looking at this, right, you know exactly what you're looking at, right? Yes, they're both loops, but this is an index, where this is an element. It doesn't actually matter that you called it I, right? That just tells me you didn't know better to call it word, because that's what it is. That doesn't excuse you. You've made at least two mistakes, right? All right, keep that in mind. Okay, experimentation with the code. Because this is an open source repo, we can actually play around with it locally. So let's do that. Clone it down. So go ahead and follow along. Just click on this and we're just going to clone this. What is this, array equal? I'm going to go in here. And I'm going to just clone it. Just go ahead and follow along. All right, I'm going to look at array equal, and there's a README, shows you how to use it. There's a package JSON. There's a license, probably MIT. Cool. There's the actual code here, right? This stuff, I don't even know what it is. Package lock, get ignore, get attribute, some kind of config file, and some GitHub thing. Cool. Cool. Everyone should have that cloned. We're going to come back to it. So we're here on step 6. Play around with the code, so let's do that. Clone it down, install the dependencies, and run the test. Let's see what dependencies is there in this. There's a bunch of tests. License, index. Let's look at the tests, actually. Oh, go ahead, Art. Sorry about that, bud.
You know, I keep feeling I need to apologize for my questions, but Guillermo, would you say that these are unit tests?
That's a good question. I mean, they're so simple. I don't even know if I'd call them unit tests. They're even simpler than that. They're just introducing you to testing. You could call it a unit test. Why not? They're just very simple, very simple. But yeah, why not? That was a question, Art?
Yeah, that was it. Thank you. I'm just trying
Okay.
to.
Yep.
I put some tests in my assessment, and I thought they were unit tests, but I need to go back and do a little bit better research on what's the actual unit test.
Yeah, for sure. These are fine. They're just an introduction to tests. I mean, you're testing literally a loop. So I mean, yeah, I guess that qualifies. Typically you test something like, I guess more robust or something. Like here, I don't I almost feel like you don't even need to test. You can just look at it and just know, hey, that's right, or hey, that's wrong. All right, so here we go. This is where we're at. Because this is an open source repo, we actually play around locally. Let's do that. You already cloned it down. You're going to install the dependencies. You're going to run the test. Here's something to try. What parts of the code, if any, can you remove and still have the test pass? If you found any, explain why they're there. If you're not sure, imagine if your input arrays had millions of elements, would it make a difference then? Right? So I'm actually going to pause the recording and I'm going to have you try step 6. Make sense? Yes? All righty. Hello? How do we do?
I think I need more time.
Okay, no worries. We're going to run through it. That's not really the main exercise, but we'll work through it together. Really, the main point of number 6, experimentation with the code, is try to figure out what are unnecessary files you can get rid of. Let's walk through that. As I'm going through it here, definitely check what you had and what you were thinking. What aligns with what you already understood to be true and what doesn't, and then just fix your mental model as we go through. All right, so 6 says, because this is an open source, we can actually play around with it locally. Here's something to try. What parts of the code can be removed and all the tests still pass, right? So let's look at it. So if I run my test, just npm test, and I run my tests, I'm going to see that all 9 pass. So that's what we want, right? I said, hey, well, what's not necessary here? So let's go through it. GitHub folder. What is this? Anybody figure it out? What's this GitHub folder?
That's a script that runs certain procedures in order to set up the application. Initially, do the initial setup for the application with npm install and npm test.
Yeah, but it does it for who? Says it in the name.
It does it for the repo, the GitHub repo.
Yeah, GitHub. Do you need it to run it locally? No, don't need it. Node modules, do you need them? Yes or no? Why?
No, you don't. No, you don't need them.
You need these. Why do you need them? You need it for your library to work, right? So don't delete those, right? Editor config, I don't even know what this is. Delete, GitHub attributes, don't think I need it. Git ignore is a nice to have, but don't need it, not pushing anything up. NPR, what's this? Package flag, I might need that. Yeah, I might need that. This, gonna need it. This, the actual code, definitely gonna need that. License, nice to have, don't need it. Package JSON. What is the package JSON? It tells you what? It tells you the name of the package, and it tells you what dependencies you need, right? There you go. Those are the dependencies that you need. So when you did npm install, this is what it's installed, Ava and XO. How can I tell? Go into test. It's importing these. So it's using it. So this specific module, this specific library is actually using another library, right? That you npm installed, right? So this is important, actually. You need to keep this. And then the README, always nice to have, but don't actually need it. So if I did that right, I should be able to do npm test. And I should still pass my 9 tests, right? Because I deleted unnecessary files. Cool. Don't need any of that for what I'm doing locally. Okay, cool. Awesome. So this is actually really important. Where do you run your npm install? Good rule of thumb, at least in JavaScript. It goes wherever your package JSON is. It's going to tell you what dependencies are needed to run that specific application. So inside of array equals, you can see that you're on the same level as package.json. Go ahead and hit npm install. For Python, if it was a requirements txt file, it'd be the same idea. All right, so we have our code here. There you go. That's the code that we need. If you look at, these are 2 files that are actually doing anything. This TypeScript file and then this index, which has all the code, right? Could we edit this and modify the library that we downloaded, that we cloned? Could we edit this? Right? Remember when I was telling you? What was I telling you earlier? This doesn't have, this could have been array one dot length. This you don't need. We don't have index anymore. It's undefined. Wait, no, go back. Index is defined, right? What isn't defined is this. But I know that if my code gets here, right, it's already the same length. This needs to be a const, right? And if I run all my tests, nothing should break, right? Yes? Ooh. What happened here? Read my error.
Well, the for loop is checking the index, but why would it complain that the index is constant if it's just checking it?
Just changed it. So does it have to be let? Let's see. Let's run it again.
So by setting it as const, it's not letting you change the actual index there. It's like locking it in place essentially.
Correct, but there's still an error here. No for of loop instead of this for loop. How do I fix this?
I'm unfamiliar with the for of loop.
For of loop is just for strings or arrays, right? Did I break it that badly? Shouldn't this be the same? Anyway, gonna drop this in the questions for later. Don't think you've gotten away from this one.
So I have a question about that because I went through and I installed the Ava,
Mm-hmm.
and when I run the test with the NPX Ava test, um, it passes all of them. When I do it with MP and and NM NPM test, it gets an error.
That is strange. So how do you run it? Let me try that.
It's npx ava test.js. I had to go and install the Ava package in there. But yeah.
This passes
Hmm.
and npm test doesn't. Interesting. I don't know why that's it has to do with the implementation of the packages. When I run test is running both, whereas when you're running Ava, you're only running one. So the issue is with XL package.
Interesting.
So that actually might be part of this issue. I dropped that in the questions channel. We'll come back to it. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. That might be the issue. Next break, I'll look into it. Do you guys hear that? That's not my fire alarm, is it? Give me 1 second. I hope things are not burning down. Okay, it stopped. Never mind. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. We'll come back to it. I'm going to look at it. I don't want this to distract us. I will go ahead and look at it and I'll make sure what it is. Actually, yeah, I'll look into this and check what the issue there is. Because you saw that when we ran it the other way, that worked and it should have. So we'll keep it like that for now. Actually, let's just run the tests as they are. I'll just go back here and just leave it, but I'll look at this later. And let's make sure that this is right. Boom. Notice here, actually, look what's happening. It's executing that script. You see that? It says npm test. Where have we seen that? Let's look. See that? It's saying, hey, in this package, array equal, right? We have a script called test that's going to execute these two libraries, right? And it's going to run them. You can run anything in here. And you can make your own JSON packages if you really wanted to, right? This license is MIT, right? Sometimes I'll have name. Sometimes I'll have author here. It's not going to break anything. Author, Guillermo. I'm the author now, right? And all of this can be changed. I can echo 1738 because I'm a big Fetty Wap fan, and I can put that into fettywap.js, right? And I can run that. Now inside of this package, right? I can do npm run fetty, right? What's going to happen here? Anyone know?
Is it going to display what you wrote there?
Read line 20. That's a little bit of bash. If you don't understand what it is, that's fine. But again, reading code. Echoes print in bash 1738 from the song Trap Queen. And I am going to double greater than it into a file called VettyWap. When I run this command, what do you think is going to happen?
You know, I actually don't know what the double greater than does.
Put into. Someone can guess it. What is it going to do when I run this command?
It's going to put 1738 at the end of fediwap.js.
Yeah. And I don't have fediwap.js. So what's it going to do?
Is it gonna make fediwap.js?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. And the double greater sign is append to. So I'm going to append, echo, print the integers 1738, append them to fediwap.js. If fediwap.js doesn't exist, please create it and put 1738 in there. There. Right. 1738 in my fediwap.js. Why did I show you that? I don't know. Just thought you would want to know that. The point is how you read this. Notice how I knew that I could put an author in there. I know that, hey, package JSON is going to tell me all of my dependencies. I know that it says it right here, dev dependencies, right? Read this. The package name is called Ava, and what is the thing on the right? What's the value? It's you haven't explicitly taught this yet, but you could probably guess. This is a package, and this is its
Location?
sorry. No? Good guess, though. What does that look like to you?
Maybe a version number?
Yeah, the version number, right? So when I look at my package JSON, my package is called array equals, it was written by Guillermo. This is version, big version 2.00, right? It's giving me the description. It's giving me a license if I need it, right? This is the repository. If I look at this, it's saying, hey, it's coming from repository, this guy, package array equals. If you turn your attention to this, look at that. That's the guy's name right there. Cinderus, whatever his name is, right? It's coming from his, and it's called indeed array equals, right? Funding, GitHub, type is a module, just a library. It's exporting what? These two files, this one and this one, to do what it's supposed to do. Side effects false, don't worry about that. What is this telling you right here? Engines node, what is that telling you? What kind of package is it or module? Node only runs one kind of language. What does it run?
JavaScript.
Yeah, it's a JavaScript package, right? Scripts, it only had one, right? So this package came with test, and there's a couple built-in JavaScript keywords, and test is one of them, right? This one I created myself. So notice I didn't do npm fedi because I created that one. Test is a built-in one, so I knew that it's npm test. That came with the package. But if I create my own custom one, it doesn't really change anything. It changes the command a little bit, right? But I can do anything that they could do, right? So now, right? And I could do this as many times as I want, right? Files, these are the important files in the package, the ones with actual code in them, right? These are just keywords. Why do you have keywords? To search for the package online, right? And these are the dependencies that you need to install and the version numbers. Make sense? So that's how you read a package JSON file. Cool. Alrighty. Let's go back to our lesson. We already removed stuff. I'm going to check on that extra library, and then we're going to go here. Serious code will have serious tests. Looking at the tests is often a good way to understand what the code does, right? I hope you already probably looked at this, right? These are all the tests that you have. It's checking, hey, it's going to return true if the arrays are the same. It should return false if the arrays are not the same, right? If one array is longer than the other, return false, right? Here, this is going to be true even if they're characters and not necessarily integers, right? That's what this tests on line 16. This is going to return false because they're different letters. This is going to return false because they're different data types. Some are strings and some are integers, right? This is going to return true. They're both empty. This is going to return true, right? That they have the same objects. And this is going to return false that they're different objects. Right? Yes?
Makes sense.
Cool. All righty. So there you go. Examine the test and see if anything jumps out at you or deepens your understanding of the code. For example, what is the difference between the last two tests? What is the difference between the last two tests? One's false and one's true. This is a tough one. We briefly talked about it with shallow equals. Anybody know? Why is line 32 true and line 37 false?
One is looking to see if they're the same, and one of them's looking to see if they're different.
They look the same to me, though.
But when I'm reading it is in line 37, what it's testing for, is it saying are these two objects different? So if they're not, if they are different, then it would return true, but because they're the same, then it's returning false.
No, that doesn't make sense. Why is it, how about, let's take it one step at a time. Why is this one true? This is a shallow equals. It's pointing to the same objects in what? In memory.
And oh, never mind. I'm stupid.
That's okay. It's pointing to the same object in memory. Look at line 33. That's in one place in memory, and it's just being referenced twice. Actually, 4 times or whatever that is. Right? It's
Sorry,
literally the same
Can you
object.
explain again what you mean by shallow equals? I totally forgot.
It just means that it's pointing to the same object in memory. Therefore, they must be equal. Right? Whereas, look at line 38. They're in different places in memory. So they return false. Now, JavaScript has shallow and deep equals, but when you go into Python, it gets a little confusing because the double equals will definitely measure deep equality sometimes, or a lot of the time. So you can, here, you can do array1, array. If you do this in JavaScript, line 43, you cannot be certain that array1 and array2 both have the same elements, right? They're both 1, 2, 3. You can't be sure. You have to do what in order to verify? Check the length and then iterate, check their values, right? Exactly what the library that we were looking at. You have to do that. Python, it's a little simpler, right? Python, if it was list 1, list 2, this works in Python. And I'll tell you if it's exactly the same. It just doesn't work in JavaScript. That's because Python's a little more user-friendly, right? And it's written in a slightly different manner. So this works in Python. This doesn't work in JavaScript. If it's confusing, it is. In time. Give us some time, come back to it later. Questions about that? Hopefully I can make that a little bit more clear. I don't expect you to know that about JavaScript or Python or the way it's implemented under the hood. That's fine. I'm just showing you that because it just kind of further reinforces my point that, hey, you have to have a really intimate understanding of one programming language. Kind of shows you what it's possible, and then it'll really help you when it's time to learn the quirks of other languages. When I say quirks, I just mean like kind of how they work. You can juxtapose them, and then it's easier to understand. To say, oh, okay, this was possible in JavaScript. Okay, it's not possible here. What's the way that we do it here or with this language? Make sense? Cool. All right. So we talked about this, refactoring and improvements. Almost all code you write professionally will be modifications to already existing code. I cannot stress this enough, and I think I've said it in this class again already, but I'll go ahead and say it again. Almost all of the code you write professionally will be modifications, right, of already existing code. Unless you go to some super high-speed startup where a lot of what you're doing is like what they call evergreen stuff, evergreen field stuff. You're not going to be really writing brand new code. You're typically going to be adding to it or fixing something or something, I don't want to say lame, but something kind of boring like updating dependencies or making stuff doesn't break with a new rollout of like Chrome or Safari or something. Let's see if there's anything we can improve upon this code. Can we think of any edge cases that this test suite doesn't cover? Take a few minutes and see if we can break this code. We're not going to do that at this moment because I have a slightly different challenge for you. But here's one that I don't know who wrote this, but somebody came up with. Compare different integers, right? It turns out that this has fails, but why does it fail? Add some logging and trace what's happening. Does this look like a bug to you? Why does this test fail? Well, let's mess with it. We just add it, right? Anywhere, doesn't matter. Let's run it now. npm test. Missing semicolon. What did I mess up? Line 1.5. Anybody see my error? It says it's missing a semicolon, but I'm not. Did I mess something up? That looks right. Oh, I have FettyWap. Is that a problem? Oh, here. No, sorry. Let me go to my package. Did I mess up? Let me delete this. Sorry. Might be causing problems here. All right, let's try that again. npm test. New line required at end of file, test line 43. Line end of file, but not found. Line 43. What? Okay. All right, let me try that again, guys. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. All right, npm test. It should pass all 9. Cool. All right. Let's add what we're going to add here. Well, let's just add it at the end. This is being awfully suspicious here. Okay. Value is not false. Value is true. Can anyone tell me off the top of their head why it's true? It's the very last test. Line 42 is saying, hey, this is false, but it actually isn't. It's true. That's the test right there. Compare different integers. That's okay. I'm going to give you this assignment along with one more because I think this is too easy by itself. We're about to take a break. Sorry, guys. We haven't taken a break, have we? Sorry, I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better. All right. Let me pause this and then we'll get the break situated. Okay. Stop share. Give me 1 second. Then I pause. No idea. Let's get started here. How far do we get? I think that was enough time. Hard to tell. How do we get? Let's look at the first challenge that I gave you. Array equals 1 and 2. What was happening there? What was happening there, or how do you fix it?
It was expecting arrays, and we put in integers.
That's it. How'd you fix it?
I put brackets around them and made them arrays.
That's kind of a hacky way. But what's a slightly better way? You do what kind of check early on in your function right at the beginning?
You could check the type
Check if it's an array.
first. Yeah. And
There you go. That's the fix. Check if they're arrays. Make sure that they're arrays. If they're not arrays, then they can't be equal arrays, thus return false, right? Nicole, I really love your answer because that happens all the time. It's like, oh, can I edit the input? No, no, you can't. Well, why is that? And I'll tell you the real reason why that isn't the case. And I think I already mentioned it, but I'll mention it again. When you get to your job, you're going to be using some third-party APIs that you pay for. A very famous example, I used to work at a trading firm. A very famous example was the Bloomberg API, right? For, stock quotes and quotes on futures. And sometimes some of those APIs would return data that was duplicate. Sometimes some of the data was missing, right? And you don't tell them, hey, your API is messed up or it's broken, fix it. They're not going to. It's your job to clean it up. Right. So you're like, oh, well, we can't edit the input. That happens in real life all the time. There's errors, right? And it's going to be way easier for you to fix them on your end than it is to ever get that company to fix it on theirs, unfortunately. So there you go. Good. Second challenge that I gave you, I said, hey, edit the file, the index.js file, to check if the array is length 4, right? And the numbers are 1738 in order. If it is, return the string fetty-wap. If it isn't, just continue doing what you were doing before. How did we fix that? Did anyone figure that one out? What was the issue? That's okay if you didn't figure it out. Tell me why you couldn't figure it out. You have to know why you weren't able to figure it out. That's actually really important. The fact that you didn't finish doesn't matter, you're learning. But the fact that you have to know why you couldn't figure it out. Does that make sense? If you don't know why you didn't figure it out, you're not learning. And that's a problem. So why did you not figure it out? Where did you get stuck?
I didn't get that far.
But why? Were you still stuck on the 1, 2?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's totally fair. You know why you didn't get to it. That's fine. But I want to make sure that we're very adamant on why we do something or why we don't. So I'll go ahead and walk through this here. Step. All right, can you guys see my screen? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is what we're talking about. Hey, just add, is this an array? Is this an array? And return false. That's a check, right? And what happens with JavaScript, guys? JavaScript is a little bit of the Wild West of languages. There's a lot of things that you can do on JavaScript that you're not supposed to do. It will allow you to do things that you're not supposed to do. Why is that? Who knows? It's just the way that it's written, right? Has anyone ever heard of TypeScript? TypeScript is just a superset of JavaScript that has type safety, right? That makes it more robust for building real applications. When you get to your job, you're actually never going to really use JavaScript for anything, right? But you will use TypeScript. It's just a safer language to use. And that's what you're actually going to use to build something out if you're going to use this specific language, right? I don't want to get too much into that, but the main thing that you need to learn is that JavaScript as a language is, and some languages are like this, none of them like JavaScript, but JavaScript's like the main culprit. It'll let you do things you're not supposed to do. Make sense? And what's actually happening here, it's a little deeper than that, right? You need to check if they're arrays, but what's really happening is here. The error is really coming on line 20, right? It's not throwing the error it should, because look at, if array 1 is an integer, look at your parameters. Everyone's looking at line 1. If these are integers, does an integer have a length property? No, it should error out, and it doesn't. Why? Because JavaScript, that's why. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, depending on what it is, right? So just check for, make sure it's an array, if not return false. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Okay, now let's get to the FettyWap case. And this is what I wrote. Const special, this is my special case here, 1738. And the first 2 lines are pretty self-explanatory, right? I'm checking, hey, are both the lengths 4? That's the only way it can be 1738, right? And then if you haven't seen this, now you have. Let's walk through it. Is checking, hey, go into array 1, check if every. What's V and I indicative of? They represent, their parameters that represent what? What does V represent?
Value,
Value, and I represents
index.
index. Yep. And I'm saying, hey, look at array 1, check if each of their value equals special at that same index. So this is actually a function. How can you tell this is a function? How can you tell that that's a function?
Because of the arrow.
Yeah. That's how I can tell it's a function. Right? And in software engineering, this is called a callback. Right? So this function is running this function on every character saying, hey, are you similar to that number at that same index? Yes. Go to the next one. Is this? Yes. Is this? Yes. Is this? Yes. And not only do I do it for array 1, but I do it for array 2. So if all 4 of these cases are true, I know that that's FettyWap. And notice where it comes. It comes right after checking the array. This order matters because code is executed from the top down. So it has to go up here. Right? Because that's the most important case. If it's FettyWap, I want you to say FettyWap. I can't have you going into this loop. It's too late. Right? And then we turn our attention to the tests, right? And this is the test that I wrote, special FettyWap case. And I just check T is. What's T is? I just pass in the array equals, and I check if both of them are FettyWap, and if the string equals FettyWap. Look at my function. Now, if this is FettyWap, and my test is testing FettyWap all caps, and I try to do npm test, do I pass everything? No. Why? It says it right there. What's the problem? They're not equal, right? Because I'm returning WAP in lower letters, in lowercase, right? Right there. But if I have it like I have it in my test, so important thing is I couldn't remember this function. I went to go Google it. But I knew, because I know how tests work and how programming works, I knew there had to be a test for array equals where I can pass in a parameter that the outcome has to be specifically this. And that's really the only difference between this test case, and obviously the is, right, and these other ones. This is not false or true. This is Betty. And I can remember it because I don't actually write JavaScript that much. You'll see me sometimes make some mistakes with JavaScript, but I don't really write it every day, right? So yeah, you forget your syntax, you're fine. But I know what it can be done, right? Because I understand how programming works. Make sense? Anyway, there you go. Okay, cool. Someone told me, what's the package JSON tell you? Gives you a lot of information about?
The package, the packages that the application use.
Yeah, gives you a lot of information on the dependencies of your application, keyword there, right? Tells you a lot about it, right? What's this package called? Who wrote it? The version, sometimes a description, sometimes if it's a license for use, where it came from, if it's a repository, type is a module, what kind of files is exporting, these two. Side effects, I actually don't even know what line 14 is, I forget what it is. But it tells you, hey, who runs it? What engine runs it? Node. So you know it's a JavaScript TypeScript file. Here's some scripts that come with it, test, but you can add your own, right? Sometimes you'll have like if you need to build something. Oh, oops. Sometimes you'll have like a build step, right? You have some command, right? Maybe you'll have some containerize, right? And you'll have some Docker command, whatever you have, right? And you have the most famous one, start, right? Start your application, right? And it'll have like maybe it might have something else, some other commands that follow, right? So when you look at this and you're trying to find an entry port, sometimes look at your JSON, right? If it has a start script, just run npm start or whatever the case may be, keyword is, and it'll find the script for you and it'll run it. Right? What files are included right there? Keywords, this is just typically for searching the package, and then dependencies and their versions. And the caret right there and the star you'll see sometimes in here mean something very specific, like, hey, every major version up to a certain version or between versions. Sometimes you'll see even like characters like greater or equal to, say version 6.21 or something like that. So sometimes you have a range, and that's what that means. Yes. Cool. All right, so that's that. Let's move on. We talked about why this doesn't work. Reading code, we already did that one. Did we do reading code? Oh. No, we didn't do reading code. Okay, so here's your challenges. Okay, we already did that. Sorry, I gave you an extra challenge, but that's totally fine. Let's look at reading code. Reading code is another what?
Another package.
Another package. Let's look through it, see what it is. Sorry, I'm messing everything up. So if you go here, JavaScript, it's going to take you there. So let's look at it. All right. So if you look at this, we can install it with this. Save kind of. It's called kind of. It appears that it does what? Just based on the first couple, the easy ones.
Oh, it returns the uh, type of data structure that it is.
Yeah, it kind of tells you what data type it is, I mean, that's kind of the name of it. So there you go. Let's try to use this. All right, let's look at the code briefly. Change log license, don't need it. README, don't need it. Package JSON, we can open. Let's see. Package JSON, the name, kind of. Get the native type of a value. That's what it's supposed to do. This is the version. Homepage. This is probably the author right here, right? Oh, here we go. Here's the author. Oh, and that's his GitHub repository. There you go. Contributors. There are some people that may or may not want credit for contributing one line of code to this or whatever it is. Cool. Repository. Bugs. Ooh, they have a GitHub where you can submit if you find a bug. The file that they're interested in is actually only one, index.js. It runs on Node. You see that? Any version bigger than Node 0.10. You see that? Remember when I was telling you, hey, this will have a what is it, inequality signs or whatever? Scripts, test Mocha. Okay. It says pre-publish. This looks like some kind of bash script of some kind. Cool. All right. Dev dependencies. What do you notice right here? Read this for me. What do you notice right here? From scripts to dev dependencies. We know that test is using what library to test?
Mocha.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go. Look, when you run, this is a built-in. So this is npm test. It's going to use the Mocha library. It's going to call it. It's going to use that to test. Cool. Keywords. Verbs. I have no idea what this is. Whatever. Plugins, just little add-ons. Linting. It's when you improve the formatting of your code. Related. Keywords again. And reflinks. No idea what that is. So there you go. So that's code. Let me go back here. So that's the package JSON, npm, and this is the code. Let's look at it. You can tell that this what does var tell you here? That this package is somewhat what?
Old,
Yeah. How do you know that, Cisco?
because well, it's suggested that you use let instead of var nowadays in the newer JavaScript.
Yeah, and you see, hey, you just see it in the package, but I'll be interviewing people and then they'll start using var and they always suck. Well, why is that? Dude, you haven't looked at anything recent in a long, long time. We haven't used var in so long, dude. They call it ES6. It's like post, I don't even know. ES6 JS year. You haven't touched anything in 10 years, bro. In code, that's a long time. A lot of shit breaks in 1 year. 10, that's a lot. All right. So yeah, that's what tells you this is old. What's happening here? What's up with these if statements? Am I missing something? Well, what's different between these if statements and this one? What's the difference between this if statement and these? There's one big difference. One has what and one doesn't. What am I looking at? One has curly braces and one doesn't. You didn't catch that? Okay. Explain why this works. When can you use non-curly braces in JavaScript?
When you're only returning a single value or instruction.
Yeah, typically when it's one line, right? If you want to return it, you can do non-curly braces. I suggest you never do this, right? Because it's too easy to make a mistake. If you want to do this, just use Python. Don't use JavaScript. Right? Sometimes people think they're being high speed when they do this. It just leads to more trouble than it's worth. Right? What happens if you don't put a semicolon in JavaScript? When the code is compiled, what does JavaScript do for you?
Does it place it for you?
Yeah, it does place it for you. You don't see it, but it does under the hood. Sometimes, again, I'll be interviewing people and they just adamant about putting a bunch of semicolons after everything. What does that tell you?
They don't know JavaScript.
Yeah, they haven't spent enough time, right, to know that if you understood it a little bit better, you would know you don't have to do that. It's going to put it for you, right? Ultimately, when we get to this job, it won't be that big of a deal because you have linters and everything. They'll force you to do it or do it for you, right? So it's going to be fine. Or you have prettier, or you'll have tools to use. They'll clean up your formatting, right? So not that big of a deal, but it's important to know. All the tools are great, but it's important to understand what is actually happening, right? Something super esoteric, like I didn't draw attention here, right? But what's void zero? Does anyone know? I don't expect you to know this, but just by chance that this is, you could probably take the context clues and figure it out. Void zero, zero is an exit code, but void here is what data type? It's, say that?
Void it's devoid of anything. It doesn't have any data type, right?
So it's undefined?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how old this package is. No one uses this. You know why? Because ES6, they came out with undefined as a type. But this is how they used to do it. So this is not necessarily wrong. This is right. It's just old. So there you go. You can do one-liners here with the conditional statements. I don't recommend it. Leaves more trouble than it's worth. And it's literally just, what is this here? Inside this if statement, you can tell that this is a what?
It's a function.
Yeah. I haven't looked down here, but I bet you anything that there's an is array function, is buffer, is argument, is date, is error, is regex function down here. Let's look. Here they are. Right? That's the only way that that would work. So there you go. These are functions, and this is a fancy switch statement. Not that fancy. It's just a fancy if else. Here's doing the same thing, just checking the cases. Is generator, you have another function that's just returning a string, right? Another switch statement. all the functions that they used earlier. Here's the regex one, right? Is generator the function I was telling you earlier? Is generator object? Is arguments? And there you go. That's kind of. If I wanted to use kind of, right, how would I do it? Let's start from scratch, because this is what I want you to do. This is what you're going to do, not specifically this one. We're just going to use this one as an example. We're inside of test. Yeah, let's do it in here. I'm going to tell you, hey, I want you to play around with kind of. Walk me through how you would do this. You're going to? I could get rid of all this. Don't need it. So I'm here. Walk me through it. You're about to do this, but just not with this package. I say, hey, go ahead.
You can do npm install dash save kind of.
Okay, let's see if we can find, we just copy this, right? This? I want this. Okay, so I'm in my folder, test for me. I'm going to do npm install save kind of. Cool. Boom. I have this dependencies. I have this. Kind of is using this version. Name is just test. It's got some node modules. It's got a license. Okay, cool. Kind of. Here's my code, right? It's inside kind of. This is exactly what we just saw, right? Void 0. The type of, the functions, the switch statement, pretty much everything we just looked at. The functions. Cool. Alrighty. What about if I wanted to use it in a file? How would I do it? So I already have my library, right? I have kind of. Now what do I do? Now what do I do? I want to use this library in another file. I have it inside the test folder, right? What about if I wanted to use it in index.js, right? Boom. Now what?
Don't you have to import it?
Yeah, walk me through it.
All right. Doesn't it start like from something or
Walk me through it.
are they both in the same folder?
Walk me through it.
Okay, I think they are. So then you wouldn't need from, then you would just need to import and then the file name.
Give me the file name.
Wait, where are we importing from?
It's in this folder. That's what the node modules tell me, right? I did npm install kind of. It's saved. I have access to it. So help me import it here in the file where I'm going to use it.
You can import kind of from kind of.
And it helps you a little bit. You see that? That was tab autocomplete, right? Now, what can I do? How do you use it? Well, look at the docs. Does this work? I just console log this and this is going to work? If I run this, what do I get? If I execute index.js, what do I get here? Well, actually, let me give you a slightly easier one. If I run and execute this file, what do I get?
Is it gonna say it's an integer?
It's not going to say integer. It's going to say what? Look at your thing.
I was gonna say number.
Yeah,
But there's something wrong with this right now. Yeah, I should say number, but there's something wrong. What's wrong here? I can tell there's something wrong because look at line 1.
yeah, you got kind of spelled wrong in line 4. It's underscore kind of or underscore of.
All right, so this should work, right? So if I run this, I should get number. Is that right? I don't know what this is. Doesn't matter. What does it show me? Number, right? Let's try another one. Make sure that wasn't a fluke. False. This is a Boolean. False. This should be a Boolean. Let's check. Yeah. Straightforward, right? I can go into node modules though. And for node modules, this shows me, right? Node module shows me all of my dependencies, right? I only have one, kind of. And if I go to package JSON, right, I have kind of, right? But I can easily download array equals as well, right? What if I also wanted array equals in here? Could I bring it in?
Yeah, you can.
What's going to happen the minute that I hit enter here?
It's just going to update the package.json.
Will it?
Yeah, wait, npm install array equal. Yeah, it should.
Nice job, Cisco. Package JSON tracks everything. Is there, what do you think what's a weird dependency? What's a math something? Let's do mathematical functions. Let's search for something weird here. Let's see. There you go, math expression evaluator. There you go. We want this one too. What does it do? I have no idea. What are you noticing? Look at your file tree. Look at your dependencies. Right? It's bringing them in, right? Now this project has these dependencies, and it's totally cool if you delete the node modules, right? Or you put them in your git ignore and you never push them up. Node modules take up a lot of room. It's a lot of code. Those are only 3 packages, right? And when you put your node modules or all your dependencies, right, in a folder or in git ignore and you don't push them up to your remote repository, that's actually not a problem because you have the package JSON. And when I hit npm install, it's going to read my JSON, know what dependencies that I need, and bring them all down. Look at what happened. You see that? How did it know? Brought them all back. It's right here. This is the money package, right? It's going to tell you, hey, what are all the dependencies that your project needs, right? Your node modules oftentimes, well, almost exclusively will be in your git ignore. You'll never actually push them up to your remote repository. That's wasted space. They don't need it. They just need to know what the package is, what the version is, and they'll pull it from the internet. Yep. Yes. Make sure you're comfortable with this process. Cool. So I just added some whatever packages, doesn't really matter. So that's reading code. I'm not going to have you, well, actually, nah, kind of is kind of lame. We're not going to do that. We're going to skip straight to code 2. We pretty much already did kind of anyway. And I use it just as an example. So we're going to go to reading code 2. And I want you to implement 2 of the specific packages. You're not going to pick which ones. I'm going to tell you which ones. I want you to implement and play around with and have something to show for Thanos.js and Elevator.js. Thanos is easier, so start with Thanos, right? And if you have time, implement Elevator.js. Yes? Start very simple. Where's mine? This is how I started. Did I even write a function? No. But I implemented it to a point where I knew that, hey, I'm bringing it in properly. I'm accessing my function properly. I can print something to the console. Cool. From here, I can actually start building out classes. I can build out functions. I can build out tests. This is working. Start here first for Thanos. And after you get that working, start with Elevator. And try to implement a couple functions, a couple tests for each. Very simple, nothing too hard. If you have questions on how the tests should be written, look at the previous work we've already done for this lesson. Just copy, paste, edit. Yes? So I'm asking for 2 or 3 tests for Thanos, 2 or 3 tests for Elevator. Play around with it. And if we get that far, we'll go into editing the code. Not quite Fetty Wap style, but more or less. Yes? All righty. I'm going to pause right there. Stop share. Any questions before I cut you loose on Thanos and Elevator.js? Don't do the other ones. Do those specifically only. I think Thanos is pretty straightforward, and then Elevator is probably one of the more interesting, slightly more challenging ones. Yes? I'm going to cut you loose here in a second. We'll come back. We'll go over that, and then we'll wrap up by going over a couple of important software things. Okay, I'm going to.
Hey,
How'd it go, guys?
good.
Pretty straightforward. Thanos was at least pretty straightforward. The other one was a little harder. Thanos.js, what did it do?
Well, one command condensed the files down to 50%. So I made 10 files and ran the command Thanos snap fingers, and then it reduced it down to 5.
What about the other one? I forget what it was called. Infinity Gauntlet Glove? Sorry, I don't watch any of those movies, but I imagine that deleted everything, right?
Yeah.
Did you need to import those libraries anywhere?
No.
How
Did
come?
not. Well, it's just, from my understanding of it, it just runs from the command line once you install it.
Okay. Let's look at it.
You just got to go to the folder that you want to run the command in, and then run it from that folder.
Okay. Let's look at it. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
So if I go to node modules and I go to Thanos and I go to constants, is it in there? This tells you what the blacklist, right? Hey, don't delete that. So if I wanted to edit it, right, and put a specific file in there or folder, I could, right?
Mhm.
So you could go in there and edit that, be like, hey, also this one. If I have a specific file, I don't want edited. You go in here, and these are all the commands. I could even change these, right? Do you still want Thanos to snap the fingers? Do you still want Guillermo to snap their fingers? No, whatever. This is just code. And this is the main function that's running. What is snap fingers in confirmation? This is kind of an old syntax, but you could probably figure it out. This is importing what? Look at that folder. Just importing the code from those two files, right? Confirmation, it's importing all this, and snap fingers, it's importing all this. Right? Remember, these are being exported, right? And here's even the prompts, right? Snap my fingers, command, right? So you can go in there and actually change this, right? Did you do it? This is actually the end line right there. Did you do it? Yes. What did it cost? Everything. Right? So you go in there and edit it, right? You don't have to import it anything. It's active because you've downloaded the package. And if you run the right commands, it will be recognized within this folder. Yes? Cool. Pretty straight. That one was pretty easy. The other one was actually a lot harder. How far did you get on elevator?
I didn't get that far.
Okay. Where did we get stuck?
I got stuck at just trying to I got stuck in the API and just trying to dissect what exactly it's doing and how to do it.
Okay, let's look at it very relatively quickly here. Thanos is pretty straightforward. Elevator. I'm guessing you must have read this, right? So you read this, and what is this library for? What does it do?
It's what I got from it, it's basically for a DOM to run in the DOM and perform instructions in the DOM or
And when you say DOM, you mean what exactly?
the web, the internet.
Yeah, the window that a user looks at, right? Like this is the DOM right here, all this. This is the DOM. Stands for document object model. You don't necessarily need to know that, but yeah. All right, so it works on the DOM. How can you tell? The keyword right there, window, the user window. Okay, it works. But what is this supposed to do? So you downloaded Thanos, right? You imported it? I mean, elevator, sorry. You got this far? Yes? You did npm install elevator, right? We got that far. And then we got stuck where?
Just making the let's see.
You could have gone to npm as well, right? And npm wasn't going to give you any more information that you didn't already have, right? This is more or less the same information. All right, so what is this supposed to do? I know you can figure this much out. It's supposed to do what?
Scroll the element to the top
And
make a ting sound when it's done.
it could be a ting, but it could be anything, right?
Any sound, yeah.
As long as you have the sound, right?
Right.
All right, so we got stuck implementing this. How do you go about implementing this? You have all the documentation that you need. Where's the disconnect here? You're missing a couple pieces that you kind of have to piece together.
Yeah.
Right. So we know it's acting upon the DOM, right? The web page, but we don't have a web page.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
We could create one. What's the what's the file that can act as like a web page locally?
An HTML file.
Yeah, an HTML file. You could create an HTML file, and then this would be the script here. This is just the JavaScript, right?
Mm-hmm.
You haven't necessarily learned this yet, right? But this is kind of what this is kind of telling you, right? That, hey, this is a script, this is JavaScript, but it's going to run, right? It's going to execute on some kind of window that the user can see, right? So yeah, if your idea was to create an HTML, right, and maybe a little button that says go to the top, like an elevator, right, and put this code in and tell it what audio to play, and maybe even create an elevator button, and you press it, it should scroll to the top and play what?
The audio.
The audio, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I'll show you, but I don't think it's gonna play. I can hear it, but I don't know if you're gonna be able to. So this is the implementation here. I wouldn't focus too much on that, but I would focus on this. Notice I have a button here in my top right hand corner. Tell me if you can hear this. When I click it, it's gonna play Fetty Wap. No?
No.
I know there's a way to do it, but I
You can
don't
share
even remember how
audio.
to do it. I know there's a way to do it, but I always forget. Like I always do it and then I forget how you do it. It's settings, maybe for next time. Sure. Here we go. Why is this not default on? Here we go. Stereo high fidelity. They're gonna be careful. Open with live server. You'll learn this before, but this is more of a just wanted to show you. I have a little button and it's just a div, and you press it, and then it plays that bit. Could you hear that?
Yeah.
All right. So notice I have an MP3 file, and I literally just Googled Fetty Wap free MP3, and I downloaded it. All right, so it's there, right? And I'm playing the same Fetty Wap. Could you play different songs? I suppose you could, right? And I'm literally just I copy pasted this, and then I edited line 42 and 43, the path to my file, right? I need this to work, but this is just, if you look in your node modules, it's in there, right here. You just needed to kind of piece together how you do it. And then I added a fancy button, but it could have been just literally, it could have been not even a button. It could have just been a letter or something to click on the DOM to play the song, right? You could have also not had a button, just played. If I had just no buttons and just a function there, right? When I load the page, what's going to happen? Let's say there is no button and it's just a pure function. When I load the page, that script is going to run. So what's going to happen?
It'll play the audio.
Yeah, I'll play the audio. You don't need the button necessarily. You could just put the script, right? When you load the page, it would just run. And it just run as long as you have the page open. Make sense? The key is to create an HTML page. I created a little fancier button, but you don't need to do that. That'd be a good stretch goal for you though. Create an HTML page, see if you can get that to work. I'll actually drop the Fetty Wap MP3 on the questions page. Check if you want to try it later. You don't have to have like Fetty Wap. I've just been listening.